Welcome to 11 Recaps. If you enjoy this summary, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. It really helps me keep bringing you engaging content. Ready for your support? Awesome, thank you. Let's dive in. The film begins with a breathtaking view of a forest in a countryside setting. We are introduced to a young boy named Lucas, assisting his lumberjack father with his tasks. Though Lucas struggles to manage the sled, his father, Louis, keeps piling on more logs, leading to the sled slipping out of control down the hill. Infuriated, Louis strikes his son harshly across the face and berates him, calling him useless. Humiliated, Lucas flees from home and escapes into the forest. Sometime later, we see another boy, Matthias, riding his bicycle in the same vicinity. He spots his friend Lucas running by himself, but when the distressed Lucas doesn't pause, Matthias pursues him into the woods. Matthias finally reaches his friend and sees the redness on his cheeks. At that moment, they spot a distant door and choose to investigate. It leads them to a small bunker, where the boys imagine themselves as soldiers and start to play. For a brief period, Lucas escapes his troubles and enjoys himself with Matthias. After a while, they decide to head out, vowing to return and play again the next day. Matthias also urges Lucas to confront his father and resist his daily abuse. Subsequently, we see father and son traveling to the city for work. Louis demands that Lucas hand him his cigarettes, but the boy refuses, citing his mother's warning about their harm to the lungs, which angers Louis. Unexpectedly, this distraction causes him to strike Matthias, who is cycling on the road, fatally injuring the boy. Rather than accepting accountability, Louis removes the bicycle lodged in his car and discards it into the forest. Shockingly, he then takes Matthias's lifeless form and dumps it in the woods too. Lucas witnesses everything in terror, too traumatized to react or speak. Louis quietly cautions his son to keep the incident a secret. Later, their vehicle is stopped by Matthias's father, Francis. Francis shares his concern that his son left home that morning and hasn't come back, but Louis nonchalantly suggests the boy is likely nearby and will return shortly. However, as the car pulls away, Francis catches sight of a troubled Lucas in the back seat. In the following scene, Louis is depicted trying to attack Lucas with an axe, only for an adult Lucas to awaken abruptly from his sleep, showing it was merely a nightmare. Years have elapsed since the event, yet he remains haunted by Matthias's fate. Lucas is jolted by a phone call delivering the shattering news that his childhood home went up in flames the previous night, claiming the lives of both his parents. Overwhelmed with grief, he finds solace in the arms of his girlfriend, Julie. In the days that follow, Lucas, joined by Julie and his closest friend Arnaud, journeys back to his small hometown for his parents' funeral. After the somber service, the trio visits the charred remains of the house. The sight tears at Lucas's heart as he recounts the officer's words, that the bodies were so badly burned, reduced to mere skeletons, identification was nearly impossible. Just then, an elderly man named Francis rolls up in a wheelchair and greets them warmly. Though Lucas feels uneasy in his presence, he introduces Francis to Julie and Arnaud. Francis, eager to connect, invites them for coffee, mentioning he has a box of Lucas's parents' belongings retrieved by the fire department. Despite his reluctance, Lucas agrees to stop by Francis's place to pick it up. At Francis's home, nestled near a forest he claims to know like family, the old man surprises them with his resilience despite his age. Inside, he shares that a logging accident years ago, while using a sleigh to haul timber, left him paralyzed. Intrigued, he insists on showing them the mechanics of it and leads them to his workshop, a treasure trove of handcrafted wooden pieces. There, Francis demonstrates a wood-cutting machine that slices effortlessly through timber, followed by a miniature model of his log-transporting sleigh, which he calls a schleit. Arnaud, unimpressed, remarks that it doesn't seem as perilous as Francis implied. The old man's temper flares, and he snaps that a single misstep could cause the contraption to crush someone in an instant. Back in the house, Lucas asks for the box of his parents' belongings. Francis says it's in the garage and excuses himself to fetch it. Alone, Lucas begins making coffee, but freezes when he spots Matthias's old cup on the counter. A haunting vision of Matthias appears before him, a reminder of an unresolved past that still gnaws at him. Francis soon returns with the box, and as they sift through it, they uncover Lucas's childhood photos, along with one of Matthias. Francis's voice trembles as he reveals Matthias was his son, killed in a tragic bike accident when he plummeted into a ravine. He goes on, tears welling, to confess that his wife, broken by their son's death, later took her own life. The weight of his enduring grief hangs heavy in the room. Lucas, burdened by a dark secret he's kept locked away for years, feels a pang of guilt. Sensing the moment's intensity, the group decides to leave, citing the late hour. They depart, leaving Francis to his memories and Lucas to wrestle with his own. Francis then requests Lucas to return someday, hinting at crucial information regarding his parents. Lucas nods in agreement and heads to his car, only to find it won't start for some unknown reason. Observing this, the old man volunteers to check the engine, but after a thorough look, he's unable to pinpoint the issue. He suggests calling his mechanic friend for assistance. Meanwhile, Arnaud, eager to get moving, starts examining the engine himself. The old man soon comes back with disappointing news. His mechanic friend is tied up and won't be available until the next day. He invites them to stay overnight, though the trio feels uneasy about the offer. Arnaud persists in troubleshooting the car and eventually discovers a severed radiator hose. He asks Francis if he has a spare hose of the same size, prompting the old man to lead Arnaud to his workshop. In the workshop, Francis remarks that the hose appears to have been deliberately sliced. Meanwhile, inside the house, Lucas and Julie catch sight of someone they presume is Arnaud driving off in the old man's car. Lucas quickly dials his friend, but with no response, he leaves a voicemail asking where he's headed. A little later, the pair venture to the workshop to check in with Francis, who explains that he couldn't locate the hose. So Arnaud went to search for a nearby garage. Lucas keeps trying to reach his friend by phone, but Arnaud doesn't pick up. Soon after, a text arrives from Arnaud, stating that he couldn't find a hose in town and is now driving to the city. A trip that will take a while, leaving the couple with no option but to wait. As dusk settles in, Lucas gets another message from Arnaud, saying it's too late to return, so he'll sleep in the car. Upon hearing this, the old man insists the couple stay the night and offers them Matthias's room. Later, while Julie sleeps, Lucas steps outside to gather his thoughts. When he returns, a noise from a cabinet catches his attention. To his shock, he finds Arnaud's phone inside, realizing his friend never left. He hurries to the workshop to search for him, but instead spots Francis's wheelchair and a wooden door in the floor. Curious, he investigates what's beneath, only to hear footsteps and duck into hiding. Shortly after, Francis emerges from the door, settles into his wheelchair, and rolls away. Suspicion gnaws at Lucas. He's determined to uncover where the wooden door leads, unaware that Francis is onto him. Descending, he enters a dim cellar, illuminating it with an old lamp. He encounters a chained door with an unlocked padlock, allowing him to proceed. In a stunning revelation, Lucas finds his parents, alive and held captive. Back in the house, Julie grows anxious, noticing Lucas's absence from the room. She rises from bed and roams the house in search of him. Soon, Julie stumbles into Francis's office, where she's met with a ghastly sight: the mutilated remains of a cat. Her eyes then catch a photo of Lucas's family and a chilling drawing of a torture device designed to kill 3 people simultaneously, labeled with the names of Lucas and his parents. Down in the cellar, Francis binds Lucas, his parents, and the machine he crafted. It's revealed here that Francis isn't truly paralyzed. He's been faking it all along. He reflects on the day Matthias died, recalling how Lucas wept in the car, a sign he knew about the accident. Francis also remembers a moment when he was working, and his lumber slipped under Lewis's car. That's when he spotted his son's bicycle parts lodged beneath it, unraveling the truth. He declares that they'll now pay for shattering his family. He then describes his creation, a pulley system with ropes linking the 3 captives. Each rope balances another's weight. If one slips, a blade drops, wounding the others. Francis grabs his weapon, poised to slice Lucas's hand and force him to release the rope, when Julie suddenly appears outside the cellar. Lucas shouts for her to flee as the old man gives chase. Later, when Francis returns home, the house is pitch black. That's when Julie ambushes him with a wooden chair. He recovers swiftly, resuming his pursuit. He lunges with a knife, but Julie breaks free, locking herself in a room and shoving furniture against the door. Meanwhile, in the cellar, Lucas and his family teeter on the edge, straining to grip their ropes. Louis points the finger at his son, insisting none of this would have happened if Lucas had just handed over cigarettes that day. Tearfully, Lucas confesses how the guilt has haunted him for 2 decades. Upstairs, Julie dials the police, but no operators answer. She hears Francis pounding on the door. In a frantic move, she smashes the window and leaps out to escape. The drop leaves her bruised but alive, only to find Francis already looming before her. Back in the cellar, Louis sees his error and resolves to save his family. He urges Matilda to release her rope so she and Lucas might live. Lucas pleads with his father to hush, but an exhausted Matilda lets go. The blade plummets, tearing Louis's body apart. Yet, amidst the carnage, mother and son slip free from their bonds, dodging their own blade. Meanwhile, Francis has strapped Julie into a woodcutting machine, intent on her death. He tells her she wasn't part of his plan, but dating a killer has its consequences. Suddenly, Lucas charges in, tackling the old man. They grapple fiercely, with Lucas eventually overpowering Francis, knocking him down. Lucas steals a moment to free Julie, but Francis rebounds, attacking while triggering the machine. Julie wrestles with her restraints and shuts it off. Now Francis dominates, pummeling Lucas. Julie grabs a hammer and strikes Francis, rendering him unconscious. Together, they haul him down the cellar stairs. Lucas then aids his weakened mother out, but she's too frail to move fast. This delay lets Francis recover. He pulls a knife from his pocket and stabs Matilda's leg. Before he can do more, Lucas gets his mom out and locks Francis back in the cellar. The wooden door doesn't hold long. Francis hacks at it and breaks free. It's then revealed Arnaud is still alive, trapped in a box, crying for help. Francis secures a can atop the box to trap him. The trio flees into the woods, but Matilda's strength fails. Lucas guides his mom and Julie to a bunker he once found with Matthias. Using a lighter, they explore, and recoil at the sight of Matthias's mutilated body, posed like a doll. Francis soon arrives, sealing them inside, declaring his son is no longer alone. They're stuck there overnight, left to plan their next move. At dawn, they wake to find the bunker door ajar. Lucas ventures out solo to scout for threats. He's stunned to see Arnaud bound to a schlitter, a lethal device Francis designed. The schlitter's so deadly that a slip of Arnaud's foot would crush him instantly. Lucas tries to cut him loose, but fails. Francis emerges, revealing he's tied Julie to a tree. If the schlitter rolls, it'll smash into her. Lucas begs Arnaud to hold steady and races to save Julie. Francis stabs his leg, sparking a brutal brawl between the two. Driven to protect his loved ones, Lucas digs deep, overpowering Francis and hurling him onto a jagged spike that impales his skull. But the nightmare persists. Arnaud loses his grip, and the schlitter crushes him. It tumbles downhill, and Lucas diverts its path, only to be gored by a spike in his gut. Julie comforts him, promising it'll be okay, but he soon dies from his wounds. Police arrive later, zipping up body bags. Only Julie and Matilda survive the bloodbath. They're whisked away in an ambulance as the film closes. Alright folks, thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video.